Hello, everyone. My name is Julie McVeigh, and this is Unordinary Made Ordinary, where we talk about extraordinary experiences of everyday people. And today we're speaking with Paige Lee. Welcome, Paige.
Hi, Julie. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me here today. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. I am looking forward to this conversation of hope and healing. Um, if you wouldn't mind, could you just share a little bit about yourself, a little bit of background info?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I am Paige Lee. I live in Idaho, and let's see, where to begin. Um, all of my babies have passed into spirit. I had miscarriages, I had a stillborn, and I had one child that lived, my son Bryan, until the age of 23, and then he was murdered while he was attending university at Southern California. And that was 13 years ago. So not a new grief, right? Been living with this for 13 years. Um, but it's been such an interesting journey because so much pain and loss throughout my life, and then to have my only child, kind of taken from me, right? Which I don't feel that way anymore, but at the time you're like, oh, it's been taken from me. um,
Mhm.
but immediately within weeks, I heard my son call out to me from the afterlife, and out loud with my
Wow.
ears, I heard him call out, "Mom." And I mean, because you can imagine, I was completely devastated. Any loss of a child, much less your only child. And and this was 3 weeks after he died. I actually had a visit from my grandmother in my dream space 3 weeks prior to Brian's death, and she kind of was just like, "It's okay, you'll be with us soon." And so I thought I was going to die. And I knew that it was a dream visitation because when I woke up, I felt, I mean, it was real, like it really happened. It wasn't a fuzzy dream. I could remember every detail. And so I thought I was going to die. And so then, it turned out to be my son who
Mhm.
passed. And then 3 weeks after that passing, I heard his voice out loud with my ears. And I just launched me on this entire ride, this spiritual ride and this journey of finding him in the afterlife. And keeping in mind that I had no psychic or intuitive abilities that I was aware of prior to that. So the fact that I like to say my grandmother came to me kind of to prepare my soul for the event that was about to occur, although I didn't understand that at the time. And then hearing my son out loud with my ears to make me jump up and like find him, right? It's like this is my purpose now, was to
Mm.
find him in the afterlife so that I can help other people find their loved ones in the afterlife. And that's how I think of myself now, is as a guide to helping people find that connection. And it's interesting because I used to teach we have to trudge through the pain before we can get to the spiritual connection. And really, just recently, Spirit has been guiding me that that really is not the case, that our pain sits right next to the connection. And it's not like we have to go through one to get with the other, because the truth of it is we will always carry some pain. I mean, that's just the truth of it. Our child passed, and we always are going to carry some pain. This is a journey of hope and healing, not the pain, right? Because
Mhm.
it's all a journey of how to it's like we have to understand why we're holding on to the pain. What are we choosing to do with our pain? Do we choose to love it, to nurture it, to do we want to kill it? Do we want to, what do we want to do with our pain, and why? And once we understand those questions, it's like then we can give ourselves permission to shift, right, into another reality, to another understanding of our pain, and perhaps get out of the deep depths of grieving, right,
Mhm.
which we all go through in the first couple of years after a significant loss in our life.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's making any sense, but it's just been
Oh, yeah.
this amazing journey, like from where I started to where I am today, and the new insights that have come forth. And then just these miracles. I mean, these miracles from the afterlife. It's just been incredible.
Can I ask you, I'm always curious about this. Growing up, childhood, did you have a religious background or a spiritual background of any sort? And did you have any spiritual experiences growing up?
So as a child, we were raised Presbyterian, and it's like at Easter primarily, put on the little dress and the matching white gloves, and off we'd go to church, right? And that really was my experience growing up. We went to Sunday school, right? Sunday school, never church, but just us kids in Sunday school. There were five of us, and so that was really it. That was the only exposure I really had to religion. When my son was younger, like junior high, high school, we searched hard for a church. We searched together. We went to every church. The Quaker was probably my favorite of the ones we visited, but Quaker, Baptist, Catholic, Presbyterian, we went to all of them. And we did not find one that made us feel whole, that made us feel worthy, that made us feel content, right, with ourself, and that we could actually touch the energy of this God being, right? So we
Mhm.
struggled with that. So we kind of abandoned that search. I've always said my church is nature. That's where I go to worship, and that's where I go to talk to God and to talk to my son, although I talk to my son and God all the time. But when I'm in nature, I feel especially connected. But I do have a story that's rather miraculous. And this is the story of when I really, for the first time, knew that there is a God, that there is some power greater than myself. And do you want to hear it?
Oh, oh, yes, very
It's a really
much.
good one. So I don't know if you're familiar with Idaho, but in northern Idaho, we have the Lochsaw River, which is a very like way up there, class 5 rapids, and freezing cold water. And Brian and I had gone up there. I had a group of friends who were going to raft the river. I am not experienced enough rafter to raft the Lochsaw, right? I can do the Boise River, but not the Lochsaw. And he said, no problem. You guys can take pictures. So we positioned ourselves on this big rocky bank at the
Mhm.
side, just below one of the rapids. And our instructions were to wait for sound, wait till we knew they were coming, and then just take pictures of them coming through the rapid. So my son, who was probably 9 at the time, had a life jacket on. He was just right there next to me. I felt perfectly safe. I did not have a life jacket on. I had the camera around my neck and, sunglasses, and everything was fine. We were just sitting there. And then the next instant, he was in the water, my son. I mean, I don't even know how it happened, to be honest with you. He was right there. I probably turned away, and I
Right.
don't know, just took a misstep. He landed in the water. I immediately just jumped in after him, as a parent would do, right? You're a mother of 2 children, so you jumped right in after him. Thank goodness I was able to grab his shirt because he had a shirt on, and I pulled him in, and then I just started swimming. And it took quite a while before I realized we were stuck in an eddy. Do you know what an eddy is? Just like a constant churning of water.
Yes.
And there's no way out. And it was freezing cold. It was spring in Idaho, all the snow runoff
Yeah.
in northern Idaho in the Lochsaw River, no less.
Mhm.
And I remember like swimming with one hand, holding onto him with the other, trying to get out of the eddy. And I mean, and it just from me to my wall is how close it was, but I couldn't get there. And I
Right.
remember thinking, I remember thinking, I am so cold. Like, I don't think I can do this for one more minute. God, please help us. And then it brings me chills every time I tell this story.
Mhm.
Not only were we all of a sudden out of the eddy, we were back up on the rock where we started.
Wait.
We went from being in the eddy, stuck,
Oh, my word.
probably going to die, and then the next thing I knew, we were on the rock. I have no memory of.
Wow.
I didn't crawl out. I didn't swim out. I didn't climb the rocks back up to where we were
Wow.
perched.
Making
I
me
know.
cry.
It's just from this point to that point. So I've
That's
always
amazing.
like, thank you, God, for saving us. And because then I got to have my son for like, you know, uh,
Wow.
12 more years or something, 14 more years after that, right? So thank God. Thank God we were given that extra time together. So I love that story as like the moment that I really truly knew as
Yeah.
as a 30-year-old probably, or somewhere close to that age, that God really does exist. Somebody plucked us out of that water, God or one of
Mhm.
his angels, and set us back on top of the rocks. And you have to assume it just wasn't our time, right? Like it wasn't our time to go. We had things to do, we had things to accomplish. And then when I take that story and then I look at Bryan's death, untimely, unexpected, you know, all of those things, undeserved, all of those things. He was a brilliant kid, finishing his second degree at USC. And it's like, why, right? You ask yourself that question, why? So my whole journey since then has been one of why did this happen? And what can I learn from it? And when I heard Bryan's voice call out to me, I knew I three things. I knew he still lived, that he really was not dead. I knew that I could still have a relationship with him, because if some form of him still lived, then by God, I could have a relationship with that person. And thirdly, I knew that I had to find him, and that if I just didn't quit trying, I would eventually find him. And that was it. I was off and running. And we just had so many cool things happen along the way. Like, one time I was in my closet and I saw a mist kind of swirl and disappear up into my ceiling. I've had so many signs and amazing, I mean, I could go on for days about the signs. That's all in my book. And then which I could show at the end if you want to show my book to
Oh,
your.
yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't
But
mind hearing about a couple of the signs just to
yeah.
share so others know how do our
Mm.
loved ones reach out to us so I can be more aware of it.
Yeah, so many ways. I mean, so everybody has different ways that they receive spirit, right? We all have different ways. I tend to feel, I'm very clairsentient. And so I feel, right? I feel spirit drop thoughts. I feel the energy run through my body. My son now, my favorite sign is he just drops his energy into me, and like my whole body will vibrate. If I'm holding my phone or something, I'll have to literally drop it, because I'm just like, I have to just stop what I'm doing, drop what I'm holding, and let the energy run through me. And I call that my Bryan hug, because, of course, he would come to me with that intensity, right? And I love that, because I think for a lot of us, we need the intensity of something like that to prove that it's real to ourselves, right? We can't prove it to anybody else because they wouldn't believe us, but we can only prove it to ourselves so that we believe it, and so that we learn to trust it when it happens. So there's that, my Bryan hugs. He sends me ladybugs, particularly in the first 2 years. And I'll just tell you the first ladybug story really quickly. I was working out in my garden, and one day, we live out kind of in the country, so it's pretty quiet out here. And all of a sudden, I felt a presence. And I looked up and I'm like, Mom, because my mom had passed 6 years prior to that. I'm like, Mom, is that you? And, first I looked up looking for husband, neighbor, there's nobody around. And then I'm like, Mom, is that you? And there's no answer. And I said, Bryan, is that you? No answer, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just going crazy. But I said, okay, Mom, if this is you, send me a yellow butterfly. And then I said, Bryan, if this is you, send me a ladybug. And I have to tell you, I don't know if I'd ever seen a ladybug in my yard ever before, right? But I forgot about it, and I remember thinking, oh, that's so silly. I wonder if I'm going to get it. And I heard one of those moments when spirit dropped that thought into my head, and I heard, you have asked for this miracle, let it go and it shall be done. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that was, but okay. And I go about my business. Well, that night, my stepkids, other kids were coming home, and they were going to have dinner with us, celebrating my birthday. This wasn't my birthday, but we were celebrating that day. And I'm running around. Don't ask me why I'm cooking on my own birthday party, but I was cooking. And I remember walking by the dining room, and we have this bay window, and I looked down, and there on the glass, clear as day, is a ladybug. And I started the same day that I had asked for the ladybug. I started
Wow.
screaming and jumping up and down, and I think they all thought I was having a panic attack, right? But I just knew, because I'd never seen we'd lived in the house 10, 12 years at that time. We'd
Oh
never seen
my.
a ladybug in the house, not one time. And, it's not a coincidence that I had asked for it that day. And ever since that day, Julie, Bryan has sent ladybugs every like important family event, just whenever we need it the most. And the most obscure
Mm.
places on a cruise ship at Glacier Bay in Alaska. On the cruise ship right in front of me, a ladybug. And it's like, you
That's
just can't.
bizarre.
So the ladybugs were cool. Any parent of a child in spirit will tell you that in the beginning, especially the first year, the signs are very regular. They like to play with electronics. My iPod would go on and off. The TV would just mysteriously freeze up with some important message on the screen, and then would start to play again. Just like incredible, incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. So I learned through all of that, and it was a process. It's grief is such a journey, right? And it's that 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. And I like to tell people, if we keep walking our spiritual journey and being a seeker and exploring all of these things, supernatural and metaphysical and spiritual, we pursue all of that and learn about it and find what works for us. What do I want to hold into my toolbox, right? When our grief throws us to our knees, because it will,
Hmm.
it's that spiritual journey knowledge that we're gaining that's going to power us to get back up, right? So that we don't just succumb to our grief, because it would be so easy to do that. It would be
Hmm.
so easy to exit this world and go be with my son, right? And some people choose that, and that's okay, because that's their truth and that's their answer. I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying it's different for everybody, right? And so
Right,
for
right.
me, that was never going to be the way. That just wasn't going to be the way. And so I just put all my energy into finding him in spirit, is how I like to say it. And I found him.
So the signs for you, that wasn't finding him. What was it? How did you find him? You know, what
Oh,
was it where you felt like, okay, I have found him?
yeah. Well, finding him to me really means being able to connect with him on my own, within myself, without looking to mediums and other outside people to do that for me. And knowing, trusting and believing that that connection is real. That's when I know have found him, right? So that was a process of getting to that point. I took psychic development classes.
Oh,
I went to lots of retreats and conferences on the afterlife, the AREI conference that I don't know if they do anymore. Helping Parents Heal has a great conference. Anyhow, numerous ones on the afterlife. So we went to all the conferences. I read book after book after book after book. And so here's another quick little story. After I'd heard Bryan's voice out loud, and I'm like, oh my gosh! And so I go to the bookstore, I go to Barnes and Noble, and I'm like, I need books on the afterlife. And I'm staring at this, and I'm like, I don't even know what to pick. 2 books just literally jumped off the shelf, threw onto the floor, and I said, okay, I'll get those. And
wow.
one of them was oh my gosh, now I'm gonna forget. So I'm gonna just back off of that because
That's
I
okay. If you remember later, though, I will be
yeah, I
curious, or you
will.
can just let me
It's
know later.
oh, it's in my book. I'll find it and let you know. So anyhow, yeah, and so I bought books and I read books, and then I finally went to the grocery store, because every time I left the house I was having a panic attack. And this is about 3 months after Bryan passed. And my husband's like, let's go to the grocery store. And I'm like, I don't want to go, because you don't want to face people, because you know that they're going to look at you with that look that says, I'm so sorry for you, but I'm so glad I'm not you. That was what I thought I saw in everybody's eyes. And I didn't want to see that. I didn't want to feel their pain on top of my own. So I'd avoided going places. Well, this day I said, okay, I'll go. And we get there. And sure enough, because remember, Bryan was murdered, so the story was all over the local news for an entire year, really, until we got through the trial. And his killer was in prison and is getting out soon. But anyhow,
Hmm.
so in the produce department, I see one of the mothers of one of Bryan's friends from high school, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I do not want to talk to this woman. I'm avoiding her, pretending I don't see her. And there's that voice again. And that voice says, go talk to her. I said, no. I always tell my voice, no. So I'm like, no, I don't want to go talk to her. Go talk to her. No, I don't want to go talk to her. And they're like, go talk to her. Three times, Spirit told me. And so I'm like, oh gosh. So I went over there and I'm like, hi, Carol. And I'm just waiting for it, right? And she goes, Paige, hi, how are you? How's Bryan? And I'm like,
Hmm?
hmm? What? Like,
What the
you
heck?
doesn't know. She didn't know. I was like, how do you not know? Like, you live in this community. How could you not know? And
Wow.
anyhow, so I told her, and she said, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do? And I said, you don't happen to know of a psychic, do you? Because, of course, I'm all into this. I've got to find him, and I don't know how to do it yet. And she goes, as a matter of fact, I'm having one of our local psychics, David Akins, come over to my house in a couple of weeks, and I have two spots left. Would you like to come? And I
Amazing.
thought, that's what this is about. I have chills right
Yeah.
now. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's what.
me too.
Yeah, I know. I love it when I get those chills. To me,
Hmm.
that's total affirmation. Um, anyhow, so I went
Mm.
and
I
he,
keep tearing up during this thing. I get
well,
chills and I tear up. I don't know what it is.
I cry when Spirit starts talking through me, like when I'm teaching a class and Spirit will come in and just start talking. I always cry. I don't know why. I don't know why. Do you know why you cry?
I don't know. I'm feeling it on that emotional level for some reason, you know.
Well,
I don't
probably
know.
because you're a mother, maybe because you're a mother, and that could be that. Or you might just be
Mm.
sensitive to spirit, you know. You might just be one of the sensitive people that's sensitive to energy and sensitive to spirit. But anyhow, so I went and it was just amazing. He named the boys that were with Bryan that night, which had never been released in the press. He knew all kinds of stuff. And
Oh,
I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is real. Like this is real. He's really talking to my son. So I signed up for psychic development classes, and that's how
wow.
it began. And, you know, one thing leads to another, one teacher leads to another.
Right.
Um, and
Oh my goodness.
it all came down to a conference in 2016 in Phoenix. And you're going to like this story because it was my one and only out of body experience. And
Oh,
yeah, it was pretty
okay.
cool. So we were doing a big group meditation. There was probably 100 people in the room, and I'm with my group of people, and we're doing this meditation, which is an afterlife connection meditation. And I don't know, like I meditate a lot. It's a practice of mine. I recommend everybody meditate as probably the best way to make connections with the afterlife, with your loved ones in spirit. But
Mhm.
this was different. I immediately kind of just dropped into that space and left my body. And while he's talking and guiding the meditation, my right brain was gone. I'm like, I was not here anymore in my body. I was in heaven, for quote, I don't know what else to call it. So in heaven, I could see I could see my body in the chair, tears streaming down my face the entire time because I was so deeply into the meditation. And I know that you've meditated a lot too, so that's why I know you're going to love this story. And I just found myself, like, I found myself in this amazing garden because I love flowers and gardens. And I found myself there and I'm walking, and the flowers are huge and the colors are so vibrant. And then I saw the ladybugs, and they were everywhere. And some of them were this big and some of them were
Getting
small,
chills
and they
again.
were the brightest colors I've ever seen. And I'm just like in awe of this garden. And then I see all my people. I see my mom and my dad, and of course, Bryan.
Wow.
And my grandparents and my babies, and I see them all coming to me, and I'm just sobbing in the chair. I mean, the physical me is in the chair, and
Right.
I'm just like, and they come up and they give me this big hug,
Mm.
and you know, we talk and we have a conversation, and then Bryan takes me and he pulls me aside and we go flying, and he shows me
Oh
what
man.
it's like to fly and to have the freedom of being spirit, right? To have the freedom of leaving the physical body behind. I mean, it's just incredible. And then we went back to the garden, and then I had one final goodbye with all
Mm.
of my loved ones, and then I was back in my body. And I just was like, I mean, and my friends were all staring at me like, oh my gosh, something like big is happening here.
Mhm.
And then when I kind of came out of it and he pulled us out of the meditation, I'm just like, somebody hand me paper, and I just immediately wrote word for word everything that I had felt. And then that story written
That's
exactly, those exact words are in my book.
fantastic. Unbelievable. What a
And I
gift.
Sometimes I want, exactly, because sometimes I'm like, well, why was I able to do that then? But I've never been able to do it before or since. And I think it was a gift. I think spirit was just like, you're ready for this. You're going to be
Mhm,
able to handle it.
mhm,
And we want to give you this. And I
mhm.
do look at it as a gift from spirit, that I'm so eternally grateful for, you know.
Wow, wow, wow. That's just so wonderful. Can I have all these different questions, but I'm just eating up everything you're saying. Um, when you were, just for those who are listening and they're not sure how this works, when you were out of body, did it feel physical to you?
Let's see, did it feel physical to me?
Solid.
It did, because because it's like in the beginning, I'm not sure, am I really like what's happening? And it wasn't until I realized that I could see my physical body still in the chair that I understood what was happening. Actually, it was Cyrus Kirkpatrick who helped me get to the fact that it was an OBE. I was just thinking at the time that I had made this amazing meditative connection, and he's the
Mm,
one that really helped me understand the difference.
mhm.
So I know that you know Cyrus, and so he was really helpful to me in that regard. And then, so then knowing that after him teaching me about that, I was able to be like, yes, exactly. That's exactly what it was. But I don't know what the right answer is, but I would have to say yes. I think I felt like I was in physical.
Right.
Other than I felt light. I felt light. I didn't
Mm,
feel heavy. I didn't have any pain. I wasn't aware of any bodily sensations, but
right.
I would say that I felt solid.
When you hugged, though,
Yes, it
you
felt.
sensed that you had the sensation of being hugged.
Yes.
It is a little different,
Yeah.
I would say, but and it's interesting to me that you could also sort of tap into your physical body. I've talked to, a handful of people who have they have had experiences where they're out of body and completely tapped into their physical at the same time. I find that fascinating.
Yeah, it was like a right brain, left brain thing. Seriously, this brain was here and this brain was there, and it just is the most amazing experience of my life, I think. Yeah, so
You've had some good ones, some
cool.
quite amazing
Well,
experiences.
and yeah, all leading me to here.
Yes.
So
And you did write a book, not recent.
a year ago, so well,
Oh, that is recent.
we worked on this book for a long time, my son and I. And in the early years, he kept saying, Mom, we can write a book. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't want to. Everybody writes a book. I don't want to write a book. And it just kept nagging at me. So finally, I said, okay, it's time to write the book. And so we did. It's called Choose to Believe, A Story of Miracles, Healing, and the Afterlife. It's very short, easy to read. At the end of every chapter, there's a little spirit message that's kind of like a downloaded message from spirit that is the chapter in summary. So it's super easy to read because as grieving people, we can't really focus or concentrate on any one thing for any great amount of time in the beginning for the first maybe even 5 years.
Right.
So it's purposefully a lot of white space. And it was good. It was healing. The book is about the healing, not the pain. And it's all about the things that we experienced, the signs, the what I call grief surges, and how to counteract those with
Oh.
tools to help you get back up out of it, right?
Hmm.
So just, yeah, it's that, and the journey of how to communicate with your child and how to learn to trust. The book is titled Choose to Believe because one day in my journey, probably, I mean, it could be as many as 5 years into the journey, I don't recall right now, but I still would doubt. I'd have all these amazing signs, all this amazing evidence, just all the crazy. And still I would say, I don't know. I
Hmm.
don't know. Is that really bright? And finally, Spirit, they just like to drop things in my head. And finally, they were like, would you just choose to believe? And I'm like, they're like, just choose to believe, and then eventually you will. And that was the message. And I said, oh, I think I can do that. I can do that. And I did. And I just said from that moment on, I choose to believe that this is real. And almost instantly, my doubts were gone. I no longer would second guess myself when I would have these connections and these experiences. I know that something greater than myself is working, with us and around us. And I just am, I feel like now I'm more of a, I just kind of do what I'm told. Like I wait for guidance from spirit, and I'm like, I'll either say yes or I'll say no, but I wait for their guidance instead of trying to force something through. And it's a much easier way of living, a much
Mm.
easier way of living for me. Yeah.
Can I ask you, I think many might be curious if you have learned anything about the afterlife, what it's like for them over there,
Well,
that you find, quite fascinating or profound.
Well, I can only tell you what was told to me by a medium. So I
Oh,
don't have firsthand. I haven't asked Brian these questions, and I know I should ask myself why, but I just have not communicated with him on that kind of a level. I communicate with him on more of a how are we going to help the other parents level, because I know that he goes and gathers up the kids, and the kids go get their parents and they come to us, because that's what
oh,
we do, is help them through their grief, right? More help them to make their own connection, right, making their connection to self, to source, and to their loved one in spirit. So I work with him in that way. I have a great story to tell you if we have time at the end. So I haven't asked him those questions directly, but in a reading I was told that, they each have their own little house. They could, whatever they want. Brian has a bachelor pad because he never got to have a bachelor pad here. My mom has a Victorian home because she's from Virginia and a Southern girl. And the medium that told me that would never have known that about my mom, right? And it just kind of all made sense. But I'm not sure exactly what I believe.
yeah.
I think we can create the heaven that we want to create, possibly. Um, but I'm not sure.
I don't even know what I would create if I had the choice. I'm not sure.
Do you have any insight into what it's like in heaven?
I don't personally. I haven't had enough personal experiences to really make it,
Yeah.
a give an authoritative, opinion, I guess, or whatever. But I was just curious if Brian shared anything
Yeah,
like
he
that.
did. When I was there in that OBE experience, he did say, Mom, it's all about the freedom. It's why I don't come back. He said it's all
Oh,
about the freedom. And I was like, what does that mean? I mean, you could take that and that could mean so many different things. But I guess today I would decipher that to mean that the freedom of the movement. He didn't say the freedom. It's all about the freedom of movement, because I think that was so important to him to get out of his, kind of self-imposed constraints, right? That I have to do this, I have to be that, I have to do better, I have to always reaching for better, better, better.
hmm.
Of course, the spirit, we're already, just pure miracle and, light of God. And so we don't need to be better than that, right? And so maybe that's what he meant, but that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I
So
like that.
yeah, I like to think that my family's all together. At least they see each other frequently. So I don't know. We'll know when we get there.
I mean, that resonates with me. I hope so too. That feels right.
Yeah, yeah. So I've had many readings. I mean, many, 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 many readings, and really I think the ultimate goal of this kind of a journey for those of us who are grieving significant loss is to learn how to make those connections ourselves, and to not have to
Mhm.
always rely on other people to make that connection.
Right.
And it is, that in itself is, it's a journey within the journey, right? Because it takes so much. You've got to have the self-discipline to meditate, or whatever it is for you, right? Not everybody meditates, and not everybody makes their connection that way. Spirit can talk to us and send us signs in so many different ways, but that direct connection,
Hmm.
automatic writing, for example, is a tool that I use. So in meditating, and then I'll just start writing. And that's a wonderful tool, because I like to write, maybe that spirit uses me for that.
Mm.
Both Brian and my guides have spoken to me through automatic writing. Meditation, of course, I've had amazing connections during meditation. I can pretty much close my eyes now and just visualize whatever and get to my truth, because I think once you get practiced at going within, finding your light, you know, expanding your light, and understanding that the connection with source, the connection with our loved ones, the connection with ourself. It's all here. It's all here within us. We don't need to bring it in. We don't need to go to other people to find it. We have everything we need. We just have to open up to it and allow it, be curious about it, allow it, and trust it. And I think the trust is the hardest part.
Did you mention you have guides as well that you've met during this time?
I met my guide, Peter, and
Okay.
you want a cute little story about my guides?
Yeah, you did have a story. I don't know if this is the
I
one.
know, I have so many stories.
Okay.
No, just really quickly, this is a quick one. I was practicing, I was going to do readings for people, right? I'd done all this psychic development work and I was like, I'm going to go do readings. So I went to a bookstore in downtown. And I was in the back room getting ready, and I'm really nervous. I've never done this for people outside of a development circle group that I had trained with for a year. And I'm sitting in the back room and I'm meditating. And Julie, it was like they were little elves, my guides. I saw them inside my brain, and they're like tightening this and loosening that and tweaking this. And I understood that they were prepping me to be able to be just a little more open and a little more intuitive. And they just were in there fidgeting with my brain. It was the coolest thing. And so then when they were done, I felt ready. And it was an amazing day of readings, right? It was just really fun and it was
Wow.
amazing. And so I love that about my guides. I later learned that my master guide is named Peter. And that's really all I know about them, other than we have healing guides. We have different guides for different, purposes. Some guides come and go, but we always have our main kind of guardian angel, main master guide, right? So I used to think that
Cool.
Bryan was one of my guides, but I don't anymore. I think he's just obviously always right here, but probably not one of my guides. But yeah, do you know your guides?
I don't.
Yeah. Oh,
I
you.
don't. That's very interesting, though.
Oh, I loved that story. Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
great story.
And I don't want to, if you did have another story, I don't know if you said when at the end you might want to share one other story, and I don't want you to cut you off.
Well,
Um,
this is a story of validation, okay? That this is a story that there is no way this could have been known, right? So I'll tell you the story. Um, so even though it came outside of me, it was something only I would be able to validate. So a particular type of reading that I used to do for people, that I still do it, but anyhow, and that reading would, because I'm not a medium and I don't claim to be, and I don't do that at all, but I do birth path readings to help people understand what are the gifts they brought to this lifetime. I trained under Sue Frederick. I don't know if you know Sue, but it's kind of it's a piece of the numerology equation, right? So why are
okay.
we here? What are the gifts we brought? Why did this happen? How are we going to survive this grief in our life using the gifts of our birth path number that we purposefully brought into this life, right? So when I do those readings, I always meditate prior to the reading, connect with their person and spirit, and connect with their guides. So I had been doing that one day, and all of a sudden Bryan pops in and he says, Mom, we can do this for a living if you want, and we can call it love letters from heaven. And I said, well, that's just stupid. I'm like, I don't like that, Bryan, love letters. That sounds cheesy. I don't like that. But I'm like, okay, right? Okay, that's cool that you're here. That's cool that we're doing this together. That was very, very cool. But I never told anybody. I didn't tell my husband. I didn't write it down. I never used the words. I never repeated the words. And then one day at that same no, this was a different conference. This was the AREI conference, the last one they had in Phoenix. And a very well-known medium, I don't know if you want me saying names, but was doing gallery readings from the stage. And a funny story too, that my group had gone to Sedona that day, and I was like, we have to get back in time for her gallery readings. We have to get back. And they're like, why? What are the odds you're going to get picked? I'm like, I don't know. We just have to get back. And sure enough, one of the earliest readings that she did, she starts saying evidential things, and then everybody stands up, and then if something doesn't relate to you, you sit down, and she continues that way until there's only one person standing. So I have a young male, he's probably in his 20s, He was affiliated with the military. My son went to West Point for a year and a half. He loved sports. I mean, I'm standing, he loved to snowboard. And one by one, people are sitting down around me. And then I was the last one standing. And so she gives me this amazing reading, right? Like the best reading I've ever had from an evidential medium. And it was fantastic. And then as she's finished and I'm sitting down, she says, "Love letters from heaven?" And I said, "What?" And I just kind of jumped back up and I said, "What did you say?" And she goes, "Love letter. They're saying love letters from heaven. Your son is saying love letters from heaven." And I said,
Man.
"No way. There's no way.
Mm.
No way." And so I told her the story and she was equally blown away, right? She was just like, "Oh my gosh, that's
And you
like
can
it."
share her name, or
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Suzanne Wilson.
Okay.
She's the best, the carefree medium. They're all good. There's a lot of good ones. I have so many stories. But anyhow, I was like, is there no better proof
Yeah.
of validation for something that my son told me in meditation that I never repeated to another soul, didn't
Right.
put it in print anywhere. And for her to repeat those words to me, I was just like, oh my gosh, like it really is real. All of this really is real. We just
Yeah.
have to choose to believe
Mm.
and to allow spirit to work with us and to let go of all the expectations of any kind of outcome, because I never would have dreamed that I would be here 13 years after my son died, teaching classes and helping other people.
Yeah.
I lead the meditation groups. I mean, I would have told you 13 years ago that I wouldn't be alive today. I couldn't see my way through 1 year. I'm like, there's no way I will not survive.
Mm.
Not 1 year, not 5 years, much less 10 years. Oh my gosh, and then I would panic thinking that it was going to be 10 years and 20 years. And now we're at 13 and it's like, wow, oh my gosh, I've learned so much. And truthfully, I'm a better person than I used to be. I'm much
Mm.
calmer. I'm much more in tune with myself and with spirit. My son and I have an amazing relationship. I talk to him all the time. He still sends me signs, although less often because we have communication on a different level now. And I
Right.
just want all people grieving to know that this is possible if you desire it. You
Hmm.
have to desire it and you have to do the work. You have to, practice meditation and do these things to get to that point.
How do the listeners connect with you? And, of course, I'll put links up, but is
Oh,
there
yeah.
a way they can connect with you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's paigewlee.com. It's PAIGEWLEE.com. I don't have any offerings right now. I just do some free monthly things. I do a free monthly meeting for parents. I do 2 free meditation groups a month. I'm finishing my last class for the year, and then I'll take a break for the holidays and relaunch in January. So, but they can get information about the book there, which is available on Amazon or any of those online places, and they can sign up for my newsletter. So
Oh, cool.
thank you for asking.
Yes, of course. And before we sign off, anything else on your heart that you feel Spirit is leading you to say? And I feel like you've shared so many wonderful things. I mean, this has been so wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much. I love sharing. I love telling our story. The message I'm getting right now really is for people who are grieving to just be gentle with yourself and to take time to love yourself. Obviously, we have to allow our grieving process to happen, but to continue seeking your higher truths, because when we fall into that black pit of despair, that's not our highest truth. That's the circumstances of the position that we find ourselves in, right? We have to grieve. We're grieving the fact that their physical body is gone. But I always ask people, what did you love about your child or your husband or your sister or your parent? What did you love about them? You might have loved their physical experience, but it was their soul and their spirit and their personality maybe that you loved, right? Well,
Mhm.
those things still exist. Their personality, their soul, their spirit, they still exist. We don't have to say goodbye to that. So reach for that. Why would we not? Why would we not reach for that and pull that in and hold that, near and dear to us, and learn how to have a relationship with kind of that version of them that is simply without the physical body? That's the only thing missing. But
Yes,
getting to
yes.
that point is a journey, and we must be gentle with ourselves in that
Mhm.
process.
Mm.
So, yeah,
Yes, thank you so much.
you're
Yeah,
welcome.
very good, um, wonderful advice. And so I guess we do. Our time is up. We have to leave, but
I know,
thank
I
you.
could talk all day with you.
Thank you, Paige Lee, for sharing. And thank you, everyone, for watching. This has been Julie McVeigh with Unordinary Made Ordinary. And I do hope you'll join us next time for another fascinating interview. If you enjoyed this video, this interview, of course, give it a thumbs up. And then if you like this type of content, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're alerted to future videos. And yeah, I hope you're having just a wonderful day or evening wherever you are on the planet or off the planet. And we will see you next time.
Thank
Bye-bye.